Hello there, everyone. I'm Sarah. Welcome back to TLC's Next Updates. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy staying up to date on your favorite reality television shows before we get into today's heartbreaking and surprising story. One of the saddest episodes of Sister Wives Season 19 aired last night, and it has left the whole fan base in tears. The Brown family is still reeling from the sudden and heartbreaking death of Garrison. In the last episode, fans saw the family visit Wyoming to bury Garrison's ashes, a somber but solemn experience. But in between the sadness, something caught everyone off guard. What Uncle Tim said during the funeral has tongues wagging. The episode opened on Janelle gathering her children for the emotional ceremony. While good to see the family reunited in one space, the reunion was tinged with sorrow as they were about to make their last farewells. Christine's kids arrived too, and the siblings spent some subdued moments at the water, fishing and looking back at the brother lost. It was a poignant moment before feelings boiled again. Soon after, Cody was seen digging the grave for his son's ashes. In his interview, he expressed how important it was for him to personally honor Garrison's memory. But many viewers weren't entirely convinced by his words. Fans pointed out on social media that the time to show love and support is while someone's still here. And several felt Cody's tribute came too late. Then, of course, there was the eulogy from Uncle Tim. And it did not go in a direction anyone had predicted. From his first words, audiences observed that he was drawing from the cult favorite, The Princess Bride. Many wondered if Garrison had really enjoyed the movie, and the nod made the ceremony that much more personal. Uncle Tim also wore one of Garrison's favorite Hawaiian shirts, a little but significant touch that momentarily lifted everyone's spirits and recalled everyone to Garrison's lively nature. His address wasn't all about reminiscing, however. Tim gave a sincere talk about the need to be there for the ones you love before it's too late. Although he never directly called someone out by their name, it seemed like his comments were directed at Cody. Fans on social media reacted instantly to this, commending Tim for being so gracious and truthful in that trying moment. His statement meant a great deal, and many viewers considered it one of the most genuine moments of the entire episode. Another emotional moment came when Brown came forward to pay his respects to his brother. In a move that caught many off guard, he swapped military tags with Garrison and shared one last drink in his honor. Pyden expressed how much influence Garrison had on his life and how much they were alike as both war men. His moving tribute moved many of the family members to tears and provided a beautiful, poignant moment of unity in the midst of tragedy. As feelings were running high, supporters were surprised by another surprise guest. Mary's one child from Cody, and a person who isn't often seen on the show, Leon Brown, came to the funeral to pay his respects. Since announcing he was transgender in 2022 and adopting they-them pronouns, Leon has largely avoided the limelight. But on this very personal day, they stepped out to support the family. It was an eloquent, moving moment that reminded the audience of the power of family bonds, even in the context of distance and transformation. This episode was not about goodbyes. It reopened old wounds, lingering regrets, and complicated love that keeps families together. From Uncle Tim's softly mighty eulogy to Pyden's heartfelt tribute and Leon's surprise cameo, it was a heart-rending reminder that it's never too late to show up for the people you love, but it's always better to do it before you lose your chance. So, what did you make of Uncle Tim's address? Was that an authentic expression or an understated message intended for Cody? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you like this summary, be sure to subscribe, like this video, and enable notifications so you won't miss any news from TLC's next updates. Until we meet again, stay safe and hold dear the ones you love. When the Brown family gathered to bury Garrison Brown, feelings were running high and old sores flared up together with fresh pain. Garrison's unfortunate demise on March 5th, 2024, at just 25 years of age, was later established to have been a suicide. It was a devastating loss to the family and also to viewers who had known him for years while watching the show. Among those present at the service was Leon Brown, who was seen sitting quietly with their sister, Maddie Brush, Janelle and Cody Brown's daughter. During a deeply personal moment between them, Maddie opened up about the strained relationship she shares with their father. With Cody, it's like, "I'm just angry at how everything played out," she admitted, her words hanging heavy in the air. Leon sat next to her, listening intently as their sister spoke from the heart. Maddie continued to consider how, in spite of the frustration and pain, she had power over how she reacted to those feelings in the future. As she sorted through her feelings, a family member sitting nearby seemed to catch something about the moment humorous, an embarrassing tension arising momentarily in the midst of their mourning. But Maddie continued, "I'm sorry for him," she said, meaning Cody, "and I'm even sadder for Robin's children. If I ever talked to any of them, I wouldn't blame them a bit. And if I've ever hurt them at all, I really apologize." Leon was quiet, though very much engaged. Throughout the months, Leon has posted minimalist but sincere memorials to Garrison on social media. Soon after his death, they shared a picture of the two of them standing together, captioned with a quote from one of Garrison's favorite movies, Dragonheart, "To the stars, Bowen, to the stars." A year after Garrison's death, Leon added another memory, writing, "I miss you more every day. It doesn't get easier, it just gets longer." The plaintive but simple message conveyed the permanent ache of loss. Leon's mom, Maddie Brown, is well known for being respectful of Leon's privacy. She never keeps followers updated about them, but in December 2024, Maddie did give a brief mention, assuring followers that Leon was fine. "They've decided not to be that public," she had said then. "We speak a lot, but I don't speak for them much. They're doing great." In the most recent season's episode, viewers witnessed a family gathering that felt far more intimate than dramatic. It captured something raw and deeply human, a family grieving together, healing in small steps, and holding space for one another in their shared sorrow. The episode's emotional peak arrived when they laid Garrison to rest in a quiet, windswept corner of Wyoming. It wasn't only the solemnity of the burial that moved viewers, but the memories, the regrets, and the words left unsaid that appeared to linger between each hug. The camera stayed on a mother whose steady strength was legendary, flanked by her children, giving hugs that took a fraction of a moment longer than other hugs and smiles that had equal parts gratitude and heartbreak. She had been the family's steady anchor for so many years, but in this moment, the cracks that existed beneath the surface were evident, the kind that loss etches into even the strongest of hearts. For the siblings, who had drifted apart over years of time and changing family circumstances, it was a moment of unanticipated solidarity. Recognizing how much their brother Garrison enjoyed fishing, they sat together by a nearby lake to cast lines into the water, a simple, lovely tribute to their brother. Sunlight sparkled across the surface, as soft laughter blended with tears, permitting them, even for an instant, to honor his memory along with their sorrow. Then, as a father reached down to grab a shovel beneath a memory-heavy sky, the family stood in semicircle around him. Once the face of their sprawling clan, Cody now appeared remote and burdened by the past. The process of burying his son was as much goodbye as it was figuring out what had been lost along the way. It was not merely a funeral. It was a clash with sorrow, with regrets, and with the messy love that holds human beings together, even when time and decision have stretched them apart. This moment gathered up so much more than tears. It harvested the painful silence following loss, the things left unspoken, and the little things that oftentimes speak louder than words ever will. Cody Brown looked more somber than anyone could ever remember. He carried a heaviness in the manner he worked the earth, every movement slow and laden with significance. His face, normally closed and resolute in front of the cameras, softened to a brief flash of exposure. In a moment of stillness, in a frank and unspoken address to the camera, he spoke of wanting to do justice to the son he had lost. But to many longtime fans of the family saga, the words rang with a different type of resonance, not as homage, but as a quiet acknowledgement of too late things. The refrain rang through comments and whispers. Where was this compassion when it could have mattered? It was a serious reminder that love postponed can too easily seem like love lost. And then there was a voice. Not one of the show's central characters the viewers had grown accustomed to hearing, but an uncle. A man whose face appeared on the show all too rarely, but whose words would leave their mark. Wearing an uncomplicated flowered shirt, a tribute to the sunny, easygoing fashion the late Garrison had adored, he moved forward with an unobtrusive comfort. He had an understated strength, a presence that sliced through the tension and sorrow that clung to that sight. As he began to speak, his first words were surprising. A quote from a vintage, much-loved movie that had a dash of whimsy. The whispered lisp, the phrasing, caused some to laugh and others to weep. It was as if a beam of light piercing through dense storm clouds, a moment when joy and grief could coexist. And when the joke faded, his words became more profound. He spoke of loss, of what it is to actually be present for each other, not only in dying, but in living. His message was not cutting, nor was it reprimanding, but it was genuine, and it stayed. He quietly accepted a father's remorse and a mother's outward sorrow and wove them together in an open letter to all of us there. We are remembered by the ways in which we decide to be present for one another while we still can. For a generation that was taught to value authenticity over image and presence over performance, his words resonated quietly but powerfully. The online community was quick to catch on to the moment. Some of them identified the film reference. Others commented on the uncle's offbeat yet deliberate dress as homage to one they had lost. It wasn't goodbye. It was celebration of Garrison's indomitable will, of joy during heartbreak, and of the need to pass on the memory of those who mentored us. And then came a moment that was even more heart-rending. A young man, tall and broad-shouldered, familiar to the audience through his time in the military and warm personality, came forward. The emotional intensity of the day drew around him as he came to stand before his brother's resting place. He had in his hand a pair of military dog tags, his own. Without a word, he pulled them away from his neck and put them beside the canister containing his brother's remains. It was a modest gesture, yet one full of meaning. An act of solidarity, of love between brothers, and a silent dialogue between souls that transcended mortality. His hands shook as he reached into a backpack and pulled out a beverage, something his brother would have liked. He uncapped it and poured it out deliberately onto the earth, a reverent toast to a life cut too short. The crowd around him held their breath, each person suspended in respect for the instant. He would later think about how Garrison had been more than a brother. He was a mirror, a mentor, a friend. Their courses had paralleled each other in so many instances, and although one was abruptly ended, their connection was not severed. Throughout the day, it was apparent that the ceremony meant more than grief. Under the sorrow were knotted fibers of past arguments, unresolved issues, and broken ties. Through exchanged glances across open ground, there went unspoken regrets between family members. A few of those relationships had been pulled taut by suffering and time, but in the moments of shared sorrow, there was a mutual understanding. The way that loss tends to both divide and reunite people was no exception, with apologies once thought impossible to provide rising up like delicate flowers on a breeze. Old love, buried deep under discarded anger and miscommunication, resurfaced in the most straightforward of terms. Loss has a tendency to bear pretenses, and that day bare the quiet sorrow and stubborn love that still bound them together. The chasms that had defined their narrative for years relaxed, if only temporarily, as the weight of death brought wayward hearts back into orbit. Once the official rituals were done, the crowds dissipated, but a few family members lingered. Some sat quietly at the gravesite, the silence among them no longer uncomfortable, but friendly. Others shared soft, unsaid consolations, an exchanged look, a photo handed back and forth from one hand to the other, a shaking hand on a shoulder. In those little, unspoken transactions, the family's notoriously complicated relationships yielded to something raw and spontaneous, human contact. Where they decided to bury him was not by chance. It was a piece of land tied to better recollections, a land of youth excursions, fishing trips, and aimless walks. To bring back his remains to this land, to the arms of those hills and heaven, was like mending something fractured. The ground itself, filled with ancient laughter and forgotten afternoons, would now bear the burden of their memories. His mother said not goodbye, but promise. He would survive. In the photos, in the half-remembered tales, in the sudden outbreaks of laughter that still surprised them. His name would hang in the air like an old song. As the sun set behind the Wyoming hills, painting the sky in a swirl of gold and red, the family started to move away. But what they took along with them was not just sorrow. They took with them fresh understanding, tender apologies, and the memory of a life that, though short, had made a deep imprint. There were no orations or fiery departures to seal the conclusion of this meeting. Nothing but the soft whisper of voices, the creaking of leaves, and the gentle breeze that bore on its breath the unspoken reality. That presence is important, that words are heavy, and that love, though sometimes late, can still come in time to mend. For viewers watching from afar, the message was unmistakable. Show up, speak your heart, mourn openly, forgive deliberately. While there's still time, be there. And in the remembering, find ways to mend what life's long stretches of silence leave undone. Among the faces present that day was one rarely glimpsed by the public eye, a presence long accustomed to staying out of the limelight within a family made infamous by their unguarded reality television show. This family member, shy in nature and deliberately quiet, has worked to create a life beyond the cameras and the constant nattering of viewers. Years have gone by, and they have mostly remained in the background of the family's TV narrative, their absence telling volumes. And yet, on this somber occasion, they appeared. Not for spectacle, not for the audience's curiosity, but for family. For the memory of a young man lost too soon. For shared grief and reluctant healing. Longtime viewers, accustomed to this person's distance, took quiet note of their return. It was a reminder that family, in all its tangled forms, still pulls us home when it matters most. This person, the son of the patriarch and one of his wives, has lived for years apart from the life one sees on television. Their journey of self-discovery and identity has played itself out for the most part behind closed doors. Although they have, over the past few years, very publicly embraced and revealed their truth. Living truly, making pronouns that are an accurate reflection of themselves, and living beyond the constricted bounds of tradition, they are now a softly potent emblem of strength and beauty in their family's frequently disordered narrative. For audiences, their visibility that day was louder than words. It reminded them that the bonds uniting families are more often than not unseen, tied in pain and with tenderness. And it reminded them of what tragedy consistently teaches, that life is brittle, love is messy, and the stories we leave are scribbled in both what we say and what we don't. When the Brown family all came out to bid farewell to their brother Garrison Brown at his funeral, feelings were raw and unfiltered. Garrison, who died tragically on March 5th, 2024, at the tender age of 25, had left behind a mournful family as well as a legacy of complicated relationships. Not only was the funeral a farewell, it was also a reckoning. Leon was seen quietly standing with Maddie Brush, their half-sister, who spoke openly about her strained relationship with their father. "So with Cody, it's like I'm angry at the way things happened," she admitted, a sentiment many in the family have wrestled with over the years. Leon stayed silent but visibly present, offering a steady, listening presence as Maddie spoke. "I have power over how I react and how I react back," she concluded, recognizing her hurt as well as her difficulty in being able to let go. Another relative responded with a smirk upon hearing her remarks, showing just how differently all the members of the family were handling their sadness and frustrations. "I'm sorry for him, and I'm really sorry for Robin's children," Maddie went on, indicating that her sympathies extended beyond close relationships. "And I would say I have nothing against you if I talk to any of them. I apologize if I've ever done you any harm." Leon, a low-key figure in recent years, paid tribute to Garrison on social media in a subdued manner. They posted a beloved photo of the two together, accompanied by a heartwarming quote from one of Garrison's favorite films, "To the stars, Bowen, to the stars." On the first anniversary of Garrison's death, Leon posted once more how the sorrow hadn't diminished. "I miss you more every day. It doesn't get easier, it just gets longer." Their mother, Mary, who has long respected Leon's privacy, made a rare public statement saying, "They've decided not to be too public. We chat a great deal, but I don't prattle on about them so much. They're fine." The funeral episode caught a glimpse of a family grieving, healing, and coming to terms with past scars. It wasn't all about tears and verbal regrets. In Wyoming's open, pine-scented air, the family buried Garrison in a place where he had previously found peace. Amongst rolling hills, a mother's unbreakable spirit cracked just enough to show her sorrow. Estranged siblings came together in small, genuine gestures, casting fishing lines into the nearby lake, a quiet reverence for a brother who had loved the water. The patriarch, normally assured and authoritative, seemed serious and subdued. Shoveling dirt into the grave, his face reflected both sorrow and what many observers thought was long-withheld regret. His words rang differently this time. Less about dominion, more about remembrance. But older fans questioned the timing of his grief, asking, where was this when the boy was alive and suffering? One surprising voice rang loudest, an uncle, not frequently on television, who came to the gathering wearing a funky shirt in Garrison style and began his comments with a citation from a beloved movie. His words, bittersweet but eccentric, pierced the gloom, bringing laughter as well as tears. He talked about showing up in life and in mourning, and the long shadows that are cast by those who do not. His soft, non-judgmental introspection resonated with an audience that prioritizes vulnerability over facade. The memorial was a weaving of sorrow, remorse, and acts of healing. A broad-shouldered, tall brother with a history of military service set his dog tags down alongside Garrison's urn, then tipped out a drink for him. A soldier's salute, a brother's farewell. The family, torn apart by years of arguing and shifting dynamics, shared small moments of reconciliation through common memories, apologies long in coming, and a shared burden of grief. In the stillness after the cameras receded, relatives hung around the grave. Some exchanged silent hugs, others small gestures, a photograph, a pat on the back, a wiped tear. The location selected for Garrison's resting place was not arbitrary. It was a location from their good times, one that echoed laughter, fishing excursions, and sunset. His remains went back to the soil he'd previously known as home, beneath skies he cherished. As dusk fell over the hills, those who had gathered to bid farewell took with them more than sorrow home. They departed with a fresh sense of understanding, forgiveness, and the knowledge that love, though late, nonetheless counts. Their whispered vows were blown away on the wind, leaves rustling in accompaniment to the unspoken reality. Show up matters, words matter, and it's never too late. Among the eulogists was the family's most private member, a person seldom glimpsed within the family's public book. Specialized in keeping out of the cameras and talk that dominated their family member's existence, this sibling stepped back into the family circle quietly, not for the viewers, but for love. In recent years, they have courageously asserted their true self, adopting pronouns and a non-traditional existence. Their rare appearances remind us gently that every public narrative contains depths of private pain, resilience, and dignity. Their show up at the memorial was not voyeurism, but solidarity, a muted affirmation of the indomitable, if messy, bonds of family. Old viewers recognize the meaning of this appearance, knowing it represented both private sorrow and public recovery. This family drama laid bare not just the pain of losing a precious brother, but also the tenuous, long-term bonds that bind us to each other through years of happiness, disagreement, and suffering. It was a picture of sorrow in its raw, unvarnished state, painful, unglamorous, and sometimes left unraveled, but threaded with strands of hope and begrudging optimism. Thank you for watching TLC's next updates on Dot. Don't miss to subscribe to my channel and watch more daily updates.